I still remember the moment I opened that email. Deployed halfway across the world, serving my country. My wife had already decided to erase me by hitting send on a divorce notice and draining our joint bank account. No calls. Number. Warnings. Just cold, calculated silence. 6 months in a combat zone and back home, my life was unraveling faster than I could even process. The house, the savings, my dignity gone. And all I had left was a plan. A plan to reclaim what she stole without making a scene. Because sometimes, the quietest revenge is the most devastating. This is my story, not about rage, but about calculated payback. And trust me, she didn't see it coming. Asterisk, I never thought. The day I got deployed overseas would be the day my life started to unravel. I was proud to serve, proud to protect, but none of that mattered when I opened that email. Divorce notice line. Divorce notice. From her, my wife Lisa. No call, no warning, just a cold digital slap in the face. I sat in that makeshift tent, surrounded by the hum of generators and distant gunfire, my hands shaking as I read the words. She said she wanted out, that she had already emptied our joint bank account, and that she was moving on. For months I was stuck. In a nightmare. No access to lawyers, no way to fight back. It's just silence from home and the taste of betrayal. The money gone, my savings wiped clean, bills stacking up, and my name dragged through the mud by people who didn't know the truth. But I wasn't broken. I was angry, quietly angry, calculating every move. When I finally got home, I didn't shout or cry. I watched, waited, and planned. Every text she sent, every late-night outing, every slip of her guard went straight into my mental ledger. I kept a notebook, digital and physical, tracking everything. I learned her patterns, her new friends, her secrets. This wasn't about rage. It was about precision. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't the loudest, it's the quietest, the one that leaves no trace but ruins everything. So I began, asterisk back home. Everything felt different. The house we once shared was colder. The memories felt heavy, but I carried them like armor, not chains. Lisa was living like she'd won new friends, nights out, posting pictures like nothing had happened. But I knew better. I started small. Quiet things. A missed bill here. A delayed delivery there. Nothing obvious, just enough to create ripples. I paid close attention to her routines. Morning coffee runs, work meetings, weekend plans. Every detail became ammunition. One night, I found out she was slipping around town with a new guy. Not that I cared about him, I cared about her hiding it from me. I collected screenshots of their texts, locations, little clues she left behind. It was like putting together a puzzle she didn't know I was solving. I opened a burner account. To send anonymous tips to her workplace about suspicious financial activities, I flagged the joint account transactions she'd made, the strange deposits and withdrawals. The bank started asking questions, and suddenly Lisa was looking over her shoulder. Every time she got a phone call, I noted it down. Every time she changed her passwords or closed an app, I marked it. I wasn't just tracking her, I was building a map of her new life, a web I planned to pull tight, but I kept it quiet. I smiled when I saw her, pretended I was done. I let her think she'd won. That was my edge, because the real game? It was just getting started. Asterisk, I remember every moment since that email landed in my inbox. As if it's tattooed on my brain, the way a soldier never forgets the sound of gunfire in the distance. Deployed halfway across the world, sitting in a cramped tent where the air never feels fresh, and there it was, the cold. Clinical words of divorce, unsigned by any conversation, no prior warning. Just an electronic severing of ties from the person I once trusted most. Lisa, my wife, had quietly emptied our joint bank account while I was fighting battles thousands of miles away, leaving me with nothing but a void and a plan that would consume me for months to come. I thought about anger, the kind that shouts and burns everything down, but I buried that deep. I realized that rage was a luxury I couldn't afford. Instead, I nurtured a quiet fury, the kind that simmers under the surface, colder, calculated. Every day since, my mind has been a relentless machine, cataloging every message, every lie, every shadow she cast over our life. The small details she thought she hid, the patterns she thought I wouldn't notice. They all built into a puzzle, a map of betrayal. I remember the nights staring at the phone, watching her social media updates, piecing together a life she rebuilt. Without me, her new friends, the dinners she attended, the smiles she flashed, all of it like a slap in the face. But I learned to see past the facade. Beneath the gloss was insecurity, fear, and the cracks I could exploit. I started small, subtle missed payments on purpose, anonymous tips to her employer about questionable conduct, hints that made her world tremble in ways she couldn't trace. I was careful. This was a chess game, and I was playing 3 moves. Ahead, it wasn't about revenge for revenge's sake. It was about reclaiming my identity, my dignity, the fragments of life she tried to erase. I watched her falter, felt the shifting balance of power, but never let my presence be known. I smiled when she looked my way, quiet and unassuming, while I unraveled the threads of her new existence at times. I wondered if she felt the weight of my gaze, if she sensed the slow tightening of the noose. Maybe she did, or maybe she didn't care, but it didn't matter, because the plan wasn't about confrontation. It was about inevitability. I won't lie. There were moments when the loneliness threatened to drown me, when the silence became deafening. But in those moments, I found strength. I found clarity. I was no longer just the soldier betrayed. I was a man rediscovering himself in the ashes. This was my war now, not fought with guns or orders, but with patience, precision, and an unyielding will. Every step, every move was a calculated blow, silent but devastating. And when it ended, I wouldn't just be holyed, be victorious, because sometimes the loudest victory is the one nobody hears coming. Asterisk, I remember waking up in that barracks room, the early morning light creeping through the blinds, the same quiet that always came before the chaos of the day, except this time, the silence was heavier, thicker, almost suffocating. It was the kind of silence that pressed against your chest and whispered reminders of what you lost. Lisa, my life back home. The future we planned together, now just fragments scattered like broken glass. The first few weeks after I got the news were a blur duty. Missions, radio chatter, all mixed with that gnawing emptiness. How do you focus on securing a base when your own foundation is crumbling? I buried myself in work, in routines, trying to forget the email that still burned fresh on my screen. But the mind doesn't forget that kind of betrayal. Slowly, I realized that if I wanted to survive this, I had to change the rules. No more waiting for her to make a mistake. No more hoping she'd come to her senses. It was time to take control. Quietly, strategically. I started watching, not just her, but the world she'd built without me. Tracked the patterns, the new people she surrounded herself with, the nights she disappeared without a word. Late night text, every whispered phone call, every social media post. They were all pieces of a puzzle I was determined to solve. I made lists. Mental notes that grew into journals filled with names, dates, places. I knew her favorite coffee spot downtown, the hours she worked at the boutique, the route she took to avoid bumping into mutual friends. It was like learning to read a language. I thought I knew, but had forgotten. Then came the small moves. A missed payment on a shared bill here, an anonymous tip to her employer about discrepancies in her timesheets there. Nothing overt, just enough to unsettle her, to make her question the stability she'd built. The silence became my weapon. The absence of noise, the quiet nudges that chipped away at her world. I wasn't cruel. At least I told myself that. I wasn't out to destroy her, just to remind her that what she did had consequences, that I wasn't a ghost to be erased. I was a man who had been pushed to the edge but refused to fall. Sometimes, I imagined the moment when she'd finally realize I was still here, watching, waiting. That the quiet was not peace, but a storm, gathering strength. Nights, the paranoia creeping in, the questions she wouldn't dare ask out loud. But I also wondered if she deserved it. If anyone could ever truly deserve that kind of calculated silence. There were nights when the loneliness hit like a freight train. The weight of the uniform, the distance from home, the sting of betrayal, it all coalesced into a crushing force. I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, asking myself if this was what justice felt like. And yet, even in the darkest moments, I found clarity. I was no longer just the betrayed husband or the soldier far from home. I was a man reclaiming his story, rewriting the ending on his own terms. This was my war now, fought not with weapons, but with patience and precision. Every move measured, every step deliberate. I wasn't just surviving. I was preparing for victory, and when that day came, it wouldn't be with a shout, it would be with a whisper. A quiet reclaiming of everything she thought she'd taken, because sometimes the most powerful battles are the ones waged in silence. I remember the day everything finally shifted. It wasn't marked by fireworks or loud confrontations, no angry shouting matches or courtroom battles. It's just a quiet evening, the kind that slips past unnoticed, but changes everything. I had spent months building my life back piece by piece, like a puzzle someone had ripped apart and scattered to the wind. Every silent step I took was a move toward reclaiming control, toward healing the fractures left behind. I watched Lisa falter, the subtle looks of doubt she couldn't hide, the hesitation in her voice when she thought no one was listening. The carefully constructed facade cracked. I saw the woman who once had the power to erase me shrink beneath the weight of her own choices. It wasn't revenge in the way people think. It wasn't about destroying someone else. It was about taking myself back. It's about making sure she couldn't keep the story twisted forever. I closed the chapter on that life quietly. Sent a few anonymous tips that led to an internal investigation. At her workplace, a few well-timed letters to creditors, reminding them of unpaid debts she'd tried to hide. Nothing reckless, just enough to tip the scales. Most importantly, I rebuilt my own foundation. I found new rhythms in the quiet mornings, new strength in the steady routine of everyday life. I started seeing the world again, not through the haze of betrayal, but through clear eyes, ready for something better. The nights where loneliness threatened to overwhelm me gave way to nights where hope whispered instead. I started dating again, cautiously, quietly, and met someone who saw me not as a broken soldier, but as a man worth knowing. I didn't shout victory. I didn't need to. The silence was loud enough, because sometimes the greatest revenge isn't about getting even. It's about standing tall when they expect you to fall. And now, as I sit here reflecting on the wreckage and the rebuilding, I know one thing for sure. I am no longer the man she thought she could erase. I am whole. I am stronger, and I am finally free. Asterisk looking back, it's clear that life can change in an instant. One email, one decision, can break the foundation. You thought was unshakable. But what defines us is not how we fall, it's how we rise again. This story isn't just about betrayal or loss. It's about resilience, about finding strength in silence, about fighting battles you never expected and winning them on your own terms. Sometimes the most powerful victories come without a shout, without fireworks, just steady, quiet determination. If there's one thing I want you to take away from my story, it's this. No matter how dark it gets, no matter how alone you feel, you are not powerless. You can rebuild, can reclaim your life, and you can do it your way. I'm grateful too. Share my journey with you, hoping it gives hope to anyone who's ever felt betrayed or broken. Your story matters, and sometimes, just sometimes, silence is the loudest voice of all. If you related to this story, please like this video. It helps me bring more real stories to light. Comment below, I want to hear your thoughts. Your stories, your questions. Let's support each other. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new story that inspires, empowers, and surprises. Share this video with anyone who needs to know they're not alone in their struggles. Together, we're stronger. Together, our voices rise even when we choose silence. Thank you for being part of this journey. Stay strong, stay silent, stay victorious. I am stronger, and I am finally